listening to RM Breakfast. Fran Kelly with you on this Tuesday, the 23rd of July, broadcasting from Parliament House in Canberra again this morning. And you can hear us on your radio, online and via the ABC Listen app. And you can send me a text to 0418 226 576 or a tweet at RM Breakfast. Well, Britain has announced plans to deploy a European-led maritime protection mission to safeguard shipping in the Strait of Hormuz after Iran's seizure of a British flag tanker last week. Speaking after a meeting of the British government's Emergency Committee Cobra, the Foreign Secretary, Jeremy Hunt, has called Tehran's move an act of state piracy that must be met with a coordinated international reaction.
We do not seek confrontation with Iran. We've taken every available opportunity to reduce misunderstanding whilst standing by our rock-solid commitment to the international rule of law, which is the foundation of global peace and prosperity.
That's British Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt. Meanwhile, Iran has announced it's broken up a CIA spy ring operating inside the country. 17 Iranians have been arrested, accused of being recruited to collect information on the country's nuclear and military sites. Joseph Fitsanakis is an Associate Professor of Political Science in the Intelligence and National Security Studies program at Coastal Carolina University. He joins us this morning from South Carolina. Joseph Fitsanakis, welcome to RM Breakfast.
Good to be here. Thank you.
Joseph, before we come to the spying allegations, the UK has just released very few details yet, but this proposed maritime protection mission. Should the US, in your view, join this force, or would you be expecting that would be invited to join this force?
I would think there'll be some American presence in that force, although given where it's taking place, I would say that any kind of handling must be very, very delicate. I mean, any kind of mistake, accident, confrontation in that region would have global ramifications because of the energy situation.
Yeah, I know this is not your specialty, but the seizure of the tanker that has really heightened tensions now between Iran and Britain and some other Western countries beyond the US. So there's that. And now that we've got Iran's intelligence ministry saying 17 men have been arrested, have confessed to collecting information on the country's nuclear and military sites for the CIA. In your view, in your experience, is that possible? And how could that be verified?
The short answer is that, in my view, it rings probably true, at least in part. There's no question that the CIA heavily recruits inside Iran, given how important the country is for America's national interests. Since 1979, when Washington lost its embassy in the country, it's become even more difficult and more important for America to recruit inside Iran. It's very difficult, very dangerous for American intelligence officers to operate inside the country, given that there's no embassy, therefore they have no diplomatic immunity. I would also say that the description of the operations themselves, the way that the Iranian media relate them to the public, ring somewhat true. The fact that, for instance, the 17 alleged spies did not know each other, that they were trained in clandestine tradecraft and so on and so forth. And lastly, the fact that they were allegedly recruited through entry visa requirements. As I mentioned before, American intelligence officers don't typically operate inside Iran. It's too dangerous. Therefore, they rely on recruiting individuals who get to travel, so the Iranian elite that gets to travel abroad. And often they do so by pressuring them when they apply to get visas to go to America, etc. Those things ring somewhat true. On the other hand, I would say that the number sounds a bit fantastical. If the CIA lost 17 assets in one big sweep, that would be probably the greatest intelligence collection disaster in the 70-plus year history of the agency. Also, given that, as the Iranians themselves said, the 17 alleged spies did not know each other, it would have taken a massive amount of resources to, first of all, detect, then build cases, and then apprehend 17 separate foreign assets. So I don't think the number rings as true as the descriptions of the operations themselves.
Okay. The US President Donald Trump and Mike Pompeo too have both said there's no truth to this claim of Iran breaking up an elaborate CIA spy ring, and they just basically say, you have to take, I think the quote is, everyone should take with a grain of salt everything that the Islamic Republic of Iran asserts today. That was from the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo. So it's not surprising that would be their response, even if it was true. But in your experience, you talked about these people would be recruited when they went to renew US visas, they went to travel overseas. What sort of realm would these people be from? Would they be from the atomic realm primarily? Is that the sort of area they'd be working in? Would they be scientists, that kind of thing? Who gets to apply for visas and travel overseas?
I personally very much doubt that. I mean, obviously there is a very large Iranian nuclear energy program or nuclear weapons program, depending how you look at it. But those scientists who work in that program are very heavily monitored by the Iranian government. So they do get to travel abroad for conferences and things of that nature. And according to the reports that we have, some of those assets allegedly met their CIA handlers while traveling abroad. But when they do go abroad, they are very, very carefully monitored by the Iranians. So I doubt they were that central in those military or energy programs of the Iranian government. My best guess would be that they were somewhat peripheral.
Now, the claim from the unnamed Iranian official who announced this, but who's been in press copy anyway, identified as the director of the counter-espionage department of Iran's intelligence ministry, has also made the claim that the promise was US visas or jobs in America, and some of the agents had now been turned and were working with the Iranian intelligence agency. Does that ring true? Have we seen this happen before? I presume we have.
Oh, yes. I mean, look, there are definitely CIA spies inside Iran because that's what the CIA does. It's its job. What I think is a bit fantastical, though, is that they would lose that many people in one broad sweep. What I think probably happened is that the Iranians managed to identify 1, 2, possibly 3 of them, and then gradually broaden the investigation to include those individuals, close associates, professional contacts, even spouses. And that's how you got to the number of 17.
Okay.
What I think is a bigger worry for the CIA is not so much those assets themselves. It's the fact that apparently the Iranians have managed to identify, allegedly, some CIA handlers, the actual case officers who are much bigger worry right now for the CIA, if true, than the assets themselves.
For killing her 4 babies, Caleb, Patrick, Sarah and Laura, in the decade from 1989. Folbig's supporters pushed for the inquiry, claiming she'd been wrongly convicted. But the inquiry rejected the argument,